Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to The Reason We Learn. I'm your host, Deb Tillman. And today I have a really exciting show for you. If you are new to the channel, please go ahead and hit that like button and share this video because we want to get as many people to hear from Charles live as possible in case they have a question. And this is going to be a humdinger, I think. Also, please consider subscribing to the channel. And what we're talking about today, this is Charles Love I'm speaking with. We're talking about his new book. And it's the pre-order is pretty much done, right? It's out next week, isn't it? Or a week from
No, keep buying. November 9th.
November 9th. Okay, so keep pre-ordering it. Keep pre-ordering it. But Race Crazy is the name of the book. You are going to want to read this book. We're going to, because we're just going to wet your whistle here. We're going to tell you some things that will blow your mind and make you want to go read all the details and check all those sources. Okay. So get all your friends, pull them over to this show. They're going to want to hear this. So Charles, and this is our second in kind of a series. We had one last week. Last week, you kind of hinted at, you said that in this book where you talk about BLM and you talk about 1619 Project and you talk about all the, progressive new racism, race activism, all that, you said there's something bigger and something worse than BLM. And the people don't even know about it, do they?
No, I still try to figure out why. Hello, all.
Yeah.
Thanks for
This
listening.
is Charles Love, by the way.
I'm Charles Love. Yeah, I'm glad you didn't do a long intro. Go figure that out. It's just me. But the book is important because it highlights all these things that that we've been seeing, but it, as we talked earlier, describes it in a different form. So it's kind of like other people do, saying this is what I disagree with. Let me, explain why. We all have the right to our views. But then I wanted people to hear and understand what they believe, because a lot of people who are pushing back against those or are labeling those who push back against this stuff never really heard what they said. They just like, I don't like you, or I don't like the people on that side who are saying this stuff is bad. So I'm not even going to read it to see if it's bad. I don't like you, so I'm on their side.
Right.
So exactly. I wanted to talk to them and say, okay, take whatever conservative or, MAGA person or whatever labels you put on it out of the equation. Just hear their words and see what they say.
Right.
So I think I had mentioned before on the BLM section that when I started to write the book, the plan was to kind of do this debunking BLM kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But I ran into a problem very early. There was nothing to debunk. We would hear the news and see one person radical screaming at a rally and say, this is bad. But, when you go to try to find their stuff, you didn't find anything. So I happened upon what we're going to talk about today, as far as the larger BLM. It's all still the same madness, but the piece that you talk about that no one's ever heard of, and those listening, and people who listen after can go back and do this exercise, but they won't be able to chat. I'm assuming people can chat in the comments.
Yeah, people can chat in the comments, and if they have, a question, they can ask a question. I mean, I can't get to every single question, but if you have something really, that jumps out as relevant, we'll try to pull it in.
Right. I just mentioned that because I know people will see it later and they can still do these exercises I'm going to do, but they won't be able to say, wow, and blow their mind. So what I found was, so I looked up, and I talk about this in the book. I'm looking at BLM and I'm doing all these searches and all this research, and it's nothing. Everybody talks about there being no funding on the site, but there's nothing. There's the talk of the 3 women who founded it and a lot of flowery language and we hate racism and cops are bad. And that was it. No plans, no nothing else. I'm like, there's got to be more to this. How am I going to write a whole, 3, 4, 5 chapters on this? There's nothing there. And so I'm reading articles, and I found out about a bunch of money given by this up and up reputable organization to this
$100 million, by the way, in case you're wondering on the quantity of money here. It's just not.
So not chump change. And they were starting this new fund to put the money in called the Black-Led Movement Fund. And these people were going to divvy this money out. And they have all these names, and I'm looking up these names, who's other people. And then they talk about the movement for Black lives. And I was like, oh, well, I wonder what this is, just naive, like, all right, let me look it up. So I looked it up and nothing came up. And then I had to come and find out. And then eventually I got to it. And so while we're talking, I think people should just Google it now. Just Google, because obviously mine is skewed because Google remembers everything you do. And I've been doing this for a year. So it comes up for me. But I want you all to just Google movement for Black lives. Type out the words movement for Black lives and see what comes up. And what was interesting was what came up was the BLM site. and some other stuff, but nothing about this organization. So you do, I don't know, it's been a year removed from me, but if you go there now, if you get a site, I eventually found a site, and every time I mention this to somebody and they say I didn't find anything, I had to tell them either you have to look to the side where there's a Wikipedia page and then go into it or click official site, or you have to type the site, which is really the letter M, the number 4, the letter B, the letter L, Movement for Black Lives.org. And then it comes up. What I found there is the shocking piece that no one heard of, the treasure troves, as it were, of, unlike BLM, they talk about specific actions, the problems with America, the things they want to do to fix it. They have action plans. They have proposed legislation, all kinds of stuff on
Very
this site.
explicit.
Yeah, so that's what I talk about. It's like they are the brain. If you know, you look at this whole progressive movement organization from a BLM standpoint, I look at it like we all see, you know, the dancer out front. But I think in the book I referenced it as a
The chaos arm of
right?
it. They're
No,
the
no, but yeah, I talked about it like BLM is like the ventriloquist dummy, and BLM is, you know, pulling the
or the
strings.
movement M4BL.
Yeah, yes.
I guess it
So
would be like the M4BL or whatever.
right.
It's harder to say, and
So hopefully people have gone there and looked and noticed it was hard to find.
mm-hmm.
But then open the site once you find it. And one of the things that's interesting, if you go to In the News, it's so funny. I went there earlier today, right before I logged on, because I wanted to see what it's changed. Like I said, I've been there a long time ago, and I don't know if things changed. So I went to the site, and I went to where it says In the News, and I noticed there was nothing in the news. Right? You go to it says In the Press.
In the press, right?
It just says that they released a report, and then that they celebrate the Breed Act. You know why? Because they don't do any media. They don't have a spokesperson. There is no Patrice Cullors. No one goes out and speaks on behalf of them with something. When a police shoots an officer, we see the rise from BLM. Nobody from Moving Black Lives goes to, you know, Rachel Maddow and say, I would like to talk about what's happening. And I am the senior director of, you know, Movement for Black Lives. That's not how it operates. The genius of it is they're not really an organization. So like BLM, if you go there and you look at About Us, there is a bunch of stuff that they believe, but there's no board of directors, there are no people. There's nobody you can point to as the mind behind it.
Right.
Because they are a group of organizations. They have 170 Black-led organizations that they sponsor, that they advise, that they give money to. And it's all, and I don't know if it's still out there. I have to find it and send you some stuff to follow up. But as I was digging through this for the book, I found, you know, organization after organization after organization. Now, these lesser organizations kind of mimic BLM in the sense that they were very, you know, sketchy. There were some of them had no websites at all. They had no financial information, no ideas, nothing. If they had a site, it would just be a logo, and it's like, we are the left-handed Blacks for Justice. And
the left-handed
logo, and then there'll be no other pages.
Well, this is a privilege, I'm told.
Right, and then there'll be no other pages.
Right.
So I think that's important, because this is where the talking points, where the brain trust is for BLM, and no one's ever heard of it. I'll shut up.
Well, no, I mean, the thing I'm itching to say, and I'm sitting here like, as you're talking, I'm like, it should be duly noted that Charles is not a journalist, paid or otherwise, right?
Right, that is correct.
So how many blue checks out there who get paid? Even like the ones, you know, that are really, you know, supposedly like dig into stuff, you know, Glenn Greenwald, Barry Weiss, you know, some of these people totally missed this. Like, I mean, people were burning down cities and carrying BLM signs and painting BLM t-shirts, all this. And a lot of people, they were, of course, on the wrong side, I guess, politically, but a lot of people were asking, I'm talking lay people, regular people, where are they getting the money? And then where's the money going? We found out they had, what was it, $9 million or something like that, or 90 million. It was a big amount of money that just BLM raised through just the Donate to BLM website. And everybody was asking, where's it going? Where's it going? Where's it going? And there's Kamala Harris. Well, help us raise money for the bail fund. where they had all this money. And you would think some intrepid journalists, even Fox News, even, you know, one of these other news outlets, OAN, that everybody criticizes, Newsmax, somebody would have said, nope, there's little Charles Love. I'm going to write a book. What's going on? What's this go to? What's this go to? What's this go? I'm reading the book and I'm going, you're like on a little scavenger hunt, and the people paid to do this just never occurred to them. They could have
Well,
done what you did.
what I would say in their defense, and then we'll get to the money thing, is that because I want to lead right by saying money is not what it was not really my approach. It's important, but it's not what I write about in the book.
No.
Don't really care to a degree, and I'll explain why.
Right.
Even though I do believe that it's important where it goes and where it's coming from.
But it would
But
have been the catalyst to find the rest.
right, but you get the book and you'll find out why that's going to be so hard, because I talk about that, and Rand Paul's talking about he's going to find the money. I'm like, good luck with that. You know, we'll say we'll get into why that's a problem. But to be fair to some of the journalists, is that they're not all investigative journalists, right? So like the anchors in the main shows, they were. I mean, keep in mind, nothing like this happened before. The country was burning. There were people on both sides arguing at each other. So they're new. They report the news, right? And they talk about and give their opinion of the news, but ideally they report the news. So they're breaking what is news. What's smart about the movement for Black Lives is they don't make news. So why would you report about them? Why would you even know about them when you have people on camera saying, I am a member of BLM and I want this whole country to burn down? That's the hot take. So you go with that, right? Then no one's mentioning this other organization. So why would you be looking for that? So that's part of it. And then, you know, like you said, because they were so focused on the money, they were trying to find money. They were questioning the money. They said, why are these people giving this money? And so they're looking, you know, and there's so much bad that you can find about BLM. There's enough there. So they just ripping. Look, Patrice bought houses. BLM doesn't say anything. All this stuff, you know, nuclear family, all this stuff. And I'm like, forget about that. We'll get to the money. What I found scared me, not because of the money, and we can talk about that if you like, is because what I found was, now I found them through the money, but
that's what I meant. Is if you see, if I'm a journalist and I'm researching BLM, and then I see this, like you did, I'm following the breadcrumbs, and $100 million pops up in my face, and on the BLM website, as you point out in the book, that, you know, most charities, those who are listening, most charities tell you, you know, we built this many houses, we put this many kids through college, whatever, right? So already that was absent. And so if you see $100 million, no real evidence of where it's going, it's not a 501(c)(3), it's a sponsored organization, yet they alone, we know, have collected 90 million. So it's like, you would think somebody somewhere would have clicked the similar links that you clicked, because you were just clicking links around.
right. There were a
And
lot of
being
links.
curious.
There were a lot of links.
That's what I mean. I just would have imagined that somebody who's trying to get a scoop or trying to like blow this thing open and, you know, get a Pulitzer Prize, who knows, would like do the investigative journalism, and
that's true.
didn't.
I don't know. I still to this day I don't know why. Maybe, you know, there's a bit in the book where I talk about Tucker because he was reporting the story, and
he almost did it.
He almost did it. He talked about a group. I sent you that picture. I took a picture of my TV because I was at this point. You got to get into my mind. I am 50% of the way through the book, so I probably in the middle of it just finished writing this whole section, and so I'm talking to the, you know, we got to finish the book. Then there's editing and all the promo. So I'm talking to my publisher, and I'm like, what's going to happen when like you say, somebody finds out about this and breaks it, and it's all over the news and everybody's talking about it? Then no one's going to care about my book because I'm talking about something that everybody else is talking about it, you know. And it's like, yeah, we'll see what happened, but nobody's talked about it yet. We'll see. So then Tucker comes on, and I'm watching. I'm like, oh my God, here it comes. And he's talking about this group, which is separate from BLM, all attached, which I can prove. And because they're all the same people. That's why I say progressive racism. It's all the same thing. And so he talks about this group, and he puts a logo on. And it was like, what was it? Something Vision or something Collective or something group, some Black Vision Collective. And he has their name on it. But above it, it's got a logo in like splash on top that says M4BL. But no one knows what it is. So he never mentions it. No one ever mentions it. And they move on.
Right.
So that didn't happen. And I'm going to show you a graphic of the funding so we can get into the funding by why it is kind of sketchy, but then why I think it's the small, like if the problem is this big, to me, the funding is this big. The problem is this. This is the problem.
Oh, well, no question about it. What the book makes clear, you guys, is that, you know, the funding's important because it also lets you know that some people in very, very high places are either not really paying attention or they're behind some pretty scary stuff. But it's the level of commitment of the individuals involved to their ideology that impressed me. That's what stood out to me, is that they are true believers. And even though some of their stuff is incoherent and contradicts itself, I
Made
mean,
up.
so do lots of cults and things like that. They contradict themselves, but whatever it is that they believe,
Mm-hmm. And the
and
other piece of it too
they're committed.
is you got to remember the goal of my book is not for the right, so to speak, right?
No.
I want them to pick it up so they can learn and they can use it. But the goal is for that person on the right to talk to their middle of the road person or their leftist family member. And more importantly, for these corporations and these wealthy people who are like, what's going on is bad. I want to help. That's fine. Because most of them aren't ideological. Some are, but to be
No.
real, most of them
No.
aren't. They're just like, hey, I want
Yeah,
to help. What else can I do? I live in a white neighborhood. Can't go down to the
exactly.
corner and do it. I'll just, it's easier to just send these people money. So it's important. It was important for me to let them know that if they donate to these groups, what their money is supporting. Forget about where the money, because what if we find out the money came from, regular Americans? This part is still a problem. So who cares where the money came from, right? We'll get to that. But the problem is, if those who are watching live, if you've gone to the site and you're already got, like shocked by they're in the news and you never heard of them, wondering why no one's reported. If you go to the bottom on the left, there's an about us. This is what got me. You go to about us, and I quote them in the book. I think the whole section, the middle section of the book is about movement for Black lives. And I would say, I don't know what percentage, maybe 30% of it is quotes from their own beliefs.
Do you want to show this stuff? Do you want people to see this, or do you want to
Sure.
just
I mean,
talk?
what do you want to show?
Yeah,
Only
I mean,
graphic I have up is the funding because I know you wanted to go to
yeah,
that. But
well, I mean, we could, like you just said, though, I mean, that's important. Let's just quickly show the funding because you've
okay,
already prefaced it with it. As bad as this is going to look, guys, this isn't really the problem. So
right.
keep that in mind as you look at the funding. So you share the graphic, and then we can talk about who they say they are and why we probably should listen. So,
Let me see. Let's see. Okay. And I'm clicking share. You probably can see me though, but here we
yep.
go. Can you see
Okay.
this?
Yep. Okay.
Okay. So you have all these organizations and you got individual supporters over here. You got organizational support here. This is from the Capital Research Center. And they're showing money, I think in 2018 and 17 that was raised here. But you see all these sponsors, all these, fiscal sponsors and these fundraisers and individual supporters, money going to different organizations here. You have Black Lives Matter here. You have the Movement for Black Lives over here, who's giving money to Black Lives Matter Global over here, who gives money to groups down here. It's just a large chain of different organizations, right?
Right.
And so tracking the money, you got the Alliance for Global Justice. You have Thousand Currents, who used to be that fiscal sponsor until something came up with one of the board members, which I talk about in the book.
Terrorist.
Yeah, she's not
Terrorist.
even a convicted terrorist, but no big deal. But
No big deal.
Clinton let her out, so what's the big deal?
Right.
So there's all of this moving parts. So with that, that's why I talk about how are you going to find the money, right? So as important as you say the money is, I talk about how Rand Paul, when he was accosted at the RNC, said, "No, we got to get to the bottom of who's funding this stuff." Like, good luck with that, because other articles and other things I found about the organization, nobody speaking directly from them, but it makes sense. It's a plus and a minus for their messaging, but they're a bottom-up organization. They hate, hierarchy and patriarchy. So they're like, everybody do whatever they want to do, which is fine, except when somebody goes off the script, you can't control them. But also what happens is, so you'll have monies, you have a reputable charitable organization who gives money to this other organization. They give money to Movement for Black Lives, who gives money to BLM. They give money to, Good Kid, Mad City in Chicago, right? And then they give money to some kids to go and break a window. How are you going to trace that back to somebody high enough that it would matter?
No, no. That's why what matters, it seems to me, is for people to understand their goals and the fact that they are so well organized, in spite of the fact that they're so quiet, and that they have a plan. The thing that really stood out to me is they admit they've been working on this for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
They have a 5-year plan.
Yep.
The 5-year plan is reasonably well articulated. As crazy as it sounds, it's kind of like, I could actually see them achieving these things. I mean, it's actually quite scary. And so the reason that this section of the book I think is so important is even if somebody else blows it open and says, hey, there's this organization, like you said, and even if people start focusing on, oh my God, and all these big corporations are unwittingly giving money to it, unless the same reporters who are exposing it or whatever dig into it the way you have in the book, people still aren't going to perceive the threat, and they're still not going to understand how it's working in the institutions.
Right. It's that's the key. That's what scared me,
Yeah.
because she just said it was far better written than BLM. I mean, there's some crazy fluffy stuff in there, made up words and that kind of thing, because they're academics, they speak that way. But I call them academics. That's the interesting thing. We don't know who these people are. So why all of you, if you want to do that, you're better at me. That's fine. Chase the money. But while so many people are worried about the money, my first thought was who's writing this stuff? Because they have lawyers here. They have 37 or so proposed legislation already written, just waiting for the right person to win off and say, bam, pass this law. So they obviously have lawyers. They have academics. So who are these people in their day job when they're not writing evil anti-American stuff for this BLM site, right? They're your teachers or your school administrators? Are they your corporate executives? Because let's talk about some of the things they talk about. Why you were so worried about the money, and so giving them their argument, which is generally my approach. BLM.
Do you want me to share that screen of the who we are and stuff, or?
Oh yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. So
because,
let's
because
show people
think that, even if you give them the argument, police brutality is bad. Police are doing some things, and defunding the police doesn't mean defund the police, and blah blah blah. And we do need reform. Charles, what are you trying to say? I'm like, we can have that debate later. What I'm saying is that's not what they want. And here on their website, in their writing, which is still up, and I took screenshots of it because I know when this book comes out, give it 2 months. If you all buy it and push it out there like you should, this site will come down. But I saved the web pages.
Okay.
It says that we are abolitionists. We believe that prisons, police, and all other institutions that inflict violence on Black people must be abolished. Where's the nuance in defunding the police? See, before they said defund the police, and people who were against them would say, well, I don't think it's right to defund the police. And their defenders will say, well, they didn't really mean defund the police. They just meant reallocating access so we can have people go out with the police to go to home and domestic violence, and maybe get somebody else to do traffic stops. So liar. That's what they're telling you to get you to listen, because you're the frog and they don't want to put you in boiling water. But what they want, in their own words, not mine, here. Now, I would like you all to buy my book, because there's lots of these quotes, and that way you don't have to click through the site. Give this to the person who's defending them, saying they don't really want to defund the police, and say, forget about what Sean Hannity or Donald Trump said they believe. These are their words. Explain your way out of this wet paper bag.
Right. And then like that's bad enough, right? I love it because I say I want to abolish the public school system or the government-run school system, their monopoly. People go, that's too radical. You're too extremist. I'm like, well, I'm not trying to abolish the freaking police. Here they also say we believe in transformation and a radical realignment of power.
Mm-hmm. So who are they giving it to?
Yeah, to whom? From whom and to whom? And when they talk about things like we want to center the experiences and leadership of the most marginalized Black people, it kind of gives you a hint of who it might be too. But who are the most marginalized of Black people? Mm-hmm. Including but not limited to those who are trans and queer, women and femmes, currently and currently, hear the word currently, and formerly incarcerated. So people are currently sitting in prison. They would like to transfer power.
You need to read one more word, though. Read the next one.
Immigrants.
You always have to. So you will find a common theme in my writing when I talk about this, that no matter what they're talking about, they might say some things that very few that I agree with, but they say some people, if you're a liberal, you're like, oh, I like that. But then they have to lose you because they got to throw something extra in there, and it's what they do. But I let this sit here. Try to get them, which I think they've already lost. They're not going to be able to argue against the defund the police argument when they have in front of them the words that say we're abolitionists. So how are they going to explain that? But let's say somehow that they are master debaters and they beat us in that debate. I lose that debate because I don't win every debate. I win 99% of my debates, but I lose this one, right? All right, but I lost the battle, not the war. Can you scroll up? Because they're not only that, to the third one. They are also what again?
Anti-capitalist.
What does that have to do with police brutality? So for those who say that they're against the way of life in America, and people say, no, they're not. They just want police to stop beating black people. Their words, not mine. We are anti-capitalist.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But this is nothing.
Black
This is
people
child's
will
play.
never listen up, black people. You apparently will never achieve liberation under the current global racialized capitalist system. And you made the point in your book that this is also dovetails with 1619 Project.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not an accident.
Yeah.
There didn't just accidentally come up with the same kind of language.
You think those people who wrote those essays for 1619 aren't part of the people who are writing this?
Oh,
Can I
please.
prove it? No. Do I have enough common sense? Yes.
Yeah.
You're going to tell me none of the essayists, nobody at the New York Times, none of the people who are talking, none of Kendi and that ilk, none of them are involved in this. Okay.
Right.
Believe that if you will. Can you, since you have this up, can you scroll back up to the top? I want because this is all lightweight. This is them telling these are the 3 points they say. They say
Yeah,
we
but
are
this is
abolitionists,
lightweight.
we are abolitionists, we are anti-capitalism, and we believe in some kinship or whatever. That's the list of of what we're about.
Real quick, I want to ask you this question. So, Rawl, I guess, asks, have you read The Naked Communist and the 45 Goals to Destroy the U.S.?
I have not.
Okay, because apparently there's parallels.
I'm sure they are, because these people soak that stuff up.
Okay.
They soak up all that stuff. Yep. But.
And thank you very much, AM, for the super sticker. Bless you. Okay. So where do you want me to go?
People don't know what they're doing behind the scenes, and they're using the emotion of terrible things that are happening to people, and some cops who may have done something wrong, but they're using that one cop who did X to funnel in all this stuff. But my argument is that it's more than just police. They don't even really talk about it anymore. And here's the proof. So go to Vision for Black Lives up top and go to End the War on Black People.
What? The where?
In the war on Black people, because there's a war and we need to end it.
Oh.
So you see there in the pie, they have 6 pillars of things they're going to do to approach this. And if we just scroll through, let's see if they have any bullets there. One is what you will find if you read this. I love it. I talking about in the book, stop right there, how they wrote this like a constitution. It even has a preamble.
Oh my God. Black life and dignity. To see
how detailed this is, right? This is not somebody just like, I think cops are all ACAB, and then they walked away. This is detailed. This is intentional. This has a goal.
I love how they say that we begin with the first plank of our vision, End the War on Black People, released on Juneteenth, as we converge across the country in resistance to police and state-sanctioned violence.
Yeah, at least they mentioned police. Give them credit for that. They don't do that often.
Yeah.
Another thing you will find that's interesting is this is heavily focused on gender. Now, they talk about when people push back against BLM, they like to say, they're against the nuclear family and the women were lesbian, whatever. Okay, whatever. But no, this is deep. It's like, I want to say 15 times they talk about queer, trans, XYZ. 3 times they use the word, I used to not be able to say it because it's so silly and made up, but now, it rolls off my tongue like it's a normal word. Cis heteropatriarchy. Over and over and over again. If you scroll down, I just want them to see how much is on this site. It's the total opposite of the BLM site that has nothing. This has nonstop information. This is, and they even have, like I said earlier, proposed legislations to fix all this. We got these laws. They want it when you get to prisons. I think today's quote was from Seth Barron at the American Mind.
End to all jails. End to all
and I talk
jails,
about in the prison. They want to end jails
and immigration and detention.
Right.
None. Yeah. 0.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. They say, and then they do it incrementally. They'll say things like, okay, we don't want nonviolent offenders. And a lot of people are like, yeah, that's fine. So now they're only people in jail are violent because you got rid of them. But then they'll say no one is somewhere in here that says no one under 23 because your brain's not developed. So everybody under 23. Now you and I all know the age group of most of the violent criminals, but tell us that side. So 23 and other, gone. Over 65, all released. Nobody. So you could only be in jail no matter what you do between 24 and 64. So right there, we lose all those people. Then no one who's like, has an illness like cancer, is on life support, or all that kind of stuff. Let them out. Then you just keep going down. When they get done, there's nobody left. Oh, women. They don't think women should be in jail. That's all. It's absolutely crazy. Keep scrolling. What else we got? In the death penalty, in the war on drugs, in the pretrial detention.
Right, pretrial detention. No, just let people walk free. They're being held because of rape or murder, but let's just let them out.
Oh,
No
we talk
bail.
about education a lot. One that you're going to find interesting is that they say, so we don't want anybody, no prisoners and no police. They don't want police and security in the schools. They don't want surveillance, and they don't want school like metal detectors in the school. So you don't want to arrest the student for being violent, but you don't want the metal detector that would probably stop them from bringing in a weapon. But you also don't want security there, which would keep people safe, and no one under 23 can go to jail. How can that be good for your children? This is what they want.
What children?
Yeah,
They don't even want to be the gender they are. So do they even want children? Are they like the new Shakers? They're just going to die out because they don't even have the family, they don't have children. Are we part of the transhumanist movement now? Like, what's going on? They're going to live forever? Is that another plank of their whole constitution?
They're also, remember at the beginning they were anti-capitalist and they're against a lot what's going on. But who's giving them the money again? Who's putting their logo up on all their corporate side?
Well, and I also love how they have up here, they talk about the money reallocate, where it talks about end the war in Black communities, reallocate funds at the federal, state, and local levels. Where are those funds coming from when there's no capitalism?
Yeah, that's true.
Where's
Then
all
there's
that money coming from when nobody's working? Because I'm sure they want to abolish the 40-hour work week. And, all the people are out of prison, and they obviously demonstrated what a great work ethic they had. So what?
Yeah, they talk about things like mandatory minimum wage. They talk about mandating. This is in the BM. Remember, the movement for Black Lives is about policing Black bodies, and they talk about letting people choose the prison they want to go to based on their gender assignment. Whatever you think of it, keep in mind, I'm not asking the question whether people should have dignity and respect if they're transgender. I'm asking, is this an important pillar for police reform, and are they true to what they say they believe? They let's
Did I
see.
get all the way? Yeah, I got all the way through. Look, all this stuff.
Oh
All
yeah.
this stuff. And they start with that false premise. And I mean, you talk in your book about the false premise.
Mm-hmm.
And which is such an important place for people to start and really understand that when they say there's a war on Black lives, a war on Black bodies, and all these things, and they'll use terms like sustained and increasingly visible violence. That's a trick. It's a word game. Increasingly visible does not mean it is increasingly it's increased in its
You can
incidence.
show the same image over and over again.
That's it. Just because I'm showing you George Floyd 24 hours a day on every network thousands of times doesn't mean there are thousands of George Floyds.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the trick they're playing. And they use these words to fool people who were not taught to think critically very well, because again, schooling is so poor, that they think that means there are more incidents of this, and there just aren't.
Right. And it doesn't mean, and there's no nuance and no context. So when they talk about a police incident, some are bad, some the cops are wrong, some not, but they're all different, and they can just pick the one they choose, or they can do say whatever they want about that one, and kind of extrapolate it down to this is what happens all the time. Can you go back down to the bottom?
Yeah, I want to quickly mention this though.
Okay.
After 3 years of consultations, writing retreats, and Zoom sessions. Mm-hmm. So to your question about who's doing
the Zoom calls,
who are going to these Zoom sessions, and like you said, what's their day job that they went and did this? 3 years.
Secretary of State.
I mean, I'm wondering. Okay, so we're back down at the bottom.
Now click the Vision for Black Lives. Let's scroll down a little bit. Blah blah blah. Policy platform. And you see how all those planks, this is a zone. So before we were just on the preamble and the overall. So you have these policies.
It's just this one little line, the preamble. Look at all this stuff.
Yeah, all that stuff. So look at that. In the war on Black youth, in the war on Black, isn't Black people enough? Black women, in the war on Black trans, queer. Now keep in mind, let's go here. So you see, don't click it though, but you see the fourth one says in the war on Black trans, queer, gender non-conforming, intersex. So they have a section where it's so important, we focus a whole section on that. Okay. Can you click in the war on Black communities?
And
the first one after the preamble.
Here we go.
And scroll down. So this is how all of these play out. I want to see it. So it says the issue, and they talk about what the issue is. I'm telling you, much better. You got to give them credit. Much more detailed than BLM. The next one says the demand. So based on this issue, this is what we demand. They have bullet points. And then look what the third one says.
Key federal legislation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5
And that's just for this one.
laws.
So that's new laws. So who wrote these? Right? They read. It's look, the Stop Militarization of Law Enforcement Act, the End Qualified Immunity Act, Peace Act. Right? Somebody
Wait a
wrote
minute.
these.
Police exercising absolute care with everyone act. I thought we were abolishing the police.
You said they contradict themselves.
I know they do, but I
Right.
mean, hello.
Right.
My point is they tell you their goals and then they show you that they are strategic and methodical and driven to the point where we'll take this incremental goal. We'll take this
right.
one. We'll take this one. We're just going to keep inching you farther and farther away from what America even is.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. So this is how all of them are laid out. An issue, a demand, legislation that they're proposing that's already written. I don't even remember what the resources are. What's the click that resources tab? Let's see what that is.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Just
There's a grant program.
Of course there is. I don't know why they got millions of dollars.
Abolition of police workshop.
Mm-hmm. Workshops are good.
Oh my God.
I got to find one more. Scroll back out. I want them to see the gender thing though, because it's sprinkled throughout.
So go back.
Let's try. I thought it was on the policy platform. Let's go back to platforms.
Okay, so we go back.
Well, right there. You see that it goes, the tab continues, right? It's like a drill down. So if you go back to where it says policy.
Okay, so which one do you want to go on?
Let me see. What's it? I thought it might have been that. I guess let's try the preamble again. Click the preamble. Maybe it was in there and I just didn't see it. Scroll down. I like the acknowledgement of all the organizations that helped them.
Right.
That were all women and all queer, including the Harriet Tubman Collective.
Third parties do not have permission to commercially distribute the contents of this document and or M4BL's intellectual property without prior permission from the authors.
Except we can't get permission from the authors because we don't know who the authors are. Scroll down.
Okay.
Let's see. Each policy
brief. Oh my God.
Yeah, this is
guys. Detailed. They have lawyers. I mean, they have some lawyers working for them, like full time. This isn't done by just regular old grassroots activists. I'm sorry. That would be.
That's why they don't need a platform and they don't need to talk about it, because that's what BLM for. Like, we'll let BLM go out and talk some stuff around and complain and do all that kind of stuff. We got bigger fish to fry.
The rising majority.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. All right. And then we are profoundly grateful and indebted to everyone who has been part of drafting, challenging, researching, and revising the vision and accompanying policy briefs, and to all have pushed us to acknowledge and be accountable, etc. But they don't name them.
Yeah, they don't. They mentioned a couple groups, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So we don't know who these people are. We don't know who wrote it. It's obviously some very smart people. These aren't dummies who wrote it. And it just goes on and on and on. Juneteenth, 2020.
Yeah. And no one said anything about this stuff.
Nope. And then these are all the demands. So all those platforms that you showed us, where it was like policy platforms, are actually their demands. So they're platform/demands. There they all are again.
Right. So what I do in the book is I just read, put out what they say. So I highlight the quote, and then I talk about what it really means, kind of like what you're doing now, just saying, so if they say that, what they really mean is this, and what it's saying is this, right? And I'm looking at it now, just looking at some stuff that I pulled, so I don't have to scroll through the site and try to find it. Yep. But, the preamble, it says this in the preamble. They might have changed it, though, from when I am, because it says something about, trying to find the one where it talks about the groups. Oh, here it goes. It says something about, we are intersectional and amplifying the particular experiences of racial, economic, and gender-based state and interpersonal violence that Black women, queer, trans, gender nonconforming, intersect, and disabled people face. Cis heteropatriarchy and ableism are central and instrumental to anti-Blackness. Okay, whatever that means, right? That's what you're thinking. And then next it says there can be no liberation for all blacks if we do not center and fight for members of our communities who are living at the intersections. You asked earlier who they were. Here they say, we believe in elevating the experiences and leadership of the most marginalized Black people, including, but not limited to, women, femmes, queer, trans, gender nonconforming, intersex, Muslim, disabled, deaf, and autistic people, people living with HIV, people who are criminalized, formerly and currently incarcerated, detained or institutionalized, migrants, including undocumented migrants, low and no income, cash poor and working class, homeless and precariously housed people, people who are dependent or criminalized, people who are dependent on criminalized substances, youth and elders. It is our hope that by working together to create and amplify a shared agenda, we can continue to move towards a world in which the full humanity and dignity of all people is recognized.
I mean, I lost count of all the false premises in that entire thing.
Or how about this? What I point out in the book, this is the last one I'm gonna get you. So I would take that using my logic and say, I'm not asking what you believe. I'm not asking you to be a Christian or a Jew or atheist. It doesn't matter. But from a logical standpoint, they had plenty of room, right? Clearly, they had plenty of time, plenty of room. That paragraph was 300 words listing all the people that they care about. They mentioned Muslim, so it's not anti-religion, right? They mentioned deaf, they mentioned autistic, homeless, all these people.
Right.
And they mentioned women. Did they forget? Did you notice? Did anybody notice three groups that who could say, type in the question, three groups that were not mentioned in there? Come on, Deb, give me one.
White people. No.
You're close. Well, white, you could be white and be whatever, but come on.
Oh, that's true. If I fit the other intersections, well, men.
Boom. Stop right there before you get to the other two. I was going to save the big one for last because the whole movement is about police brutality, and the people who are most likely to be attacked and brutalized by police are men. There were no men in that group. And the other two I'll give you, Jews and Christians. But Muslims were there. So you can't say, well, we're just
that
going
is a
out
good point. And you know, guys, there's a lot in this book. What's really interesting is you've pointed this out, that they'll say they're kind of like anti-religion or whatever. They'll make these statements, and then they're almost always cite Muslim. They sound pro-Islam or pro-Muslim.
They're not.
And then they make these like religious statements, like we need a new covenant. They use terms like covenant. So they're very strange. But you're absolutely right. They definitely are. You read between the lines, and this is an anti-Jewish organization. It's not just that they don't mention Jews; they're anti.
Oh, it used early on. If people remember, way before the nuclear family, they got in trouble because they had BDS on their site. They were supporting BDS, and people were like, "Well, what does that have to do with Black people?" So they took that down. But my thing is, it's even more sinister than that. And I write about this in my last book in a chapter about religion. And you know, everything I do is from a logical, not a Christian approach, because I want everybody to be able to understand what I'm saying. So it's not about what your religious beliefs is. I just question, you know, like Columbo. I'm just like, excuse me, I just got a question here. So you're saying that religion is bad, and fake, and fairy tale, but you know, you lift up Muslims, right? Like, why you don't just leave those Muslims alone, let them do what they want to do? You're an Islamophobe, right? But then you attack the evangelical Christian, and you're silent on the Jew, really. You're just like, because you know there's enough secular Jews that won't attack you. But my thing is, the three major religions have several. They're different, you know, from a theological standpoint, but they have several beliefs and several tenets that are similar. So how do you attack the Christian for being anti-gay and then support the Muslim who pushes the gay off the root, right? So even in their arguments, they're doing this dance because they know that most people will just say, I don't want to touch religion. That's a hot button issue, so I won't say anything. Or if you attack them and say, you're trying to tear down Judeo-Christian values, they're like, no, I'm not. I have nothing against religion. Look, I just said, way to go, Muslim, right? It's all a ploy. I say to the Muslims, you don't think they hate you too? I mean, if they hate what the Jews and the Christians believe, and you also believe those things because your theology is different, they still don't like you. They're using you because they can use, because who's the big boy in the block? from a religion standpoint. It's the Christians. So if I can use the Muslims to bludgeon the Christians with, I will. But you think the Christians die away and they go away, they're going to be like, oh, we're glad that Muslims are here? Of course not.
No.
Of course not.
Well, and
Right?
how do you square getting rid of prisons and letting the drug people run free and all of the and as you pointed out, supporting gays, whatever. Muslims aren't going for that.
Nope.
How do you square Sharia law, which I know we don't have in the United States, but even
But I
Muslims
bet
who
a
are in
good
the United
portion of these people would support it. I mean, they would be against it in theory, like if it happened, if it came into their block. But in general, they would be like, let the people do whatever they want to do.
Right. But I'm saying that I think most Muslims are pretty on board with law and order.
Right.
They're not big, huge fans of, criminals running around.
Yeah.
So do you want to show any more of this? Or you just want me to take it down?
No, we're good. I think that's enough. I think that it's done. It served my purpose in letting people know, one, that it's not about police brutality. Two, that these people are organized and really detailed about what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because you got to give them credit. If you go to the BLM site, there's a total difference between this and the BLM site. None of that stuff is built on BLM.
There's so much.
It's just flashy colors and nothing
on
on
and
BLM.
on and on and on.
And so you have to wonder if this is what led me to it in a sense. I'm looking at BLM and I'm like, why would they put nothing on the site? One thing, not having the names and not talk about where their money went, but they're not even talking about their wins and the things that they're going to do, how many racists they arrested or whatever. None of that stuff. What they're going to do. What are their plans? How can none of that stuff be there? It's because it's over there.
I do have some names. Wait, I just found something. I mean, you may have looked at this, but they probably updated this. Let me show you something I just found because I clicked on it out of just said on a whim. I clicked on the events tab. And then on the events tab, I clicked on the State of Black America. And this came up February 23rd, 2021. And when we scroll
they had
through,
let's play the video and see who was there. No, I'm kidding.
I would, but the sound won't work through my lives. I'm still working on getting that hooked up.
Okay.
But here's what it says. They at the dawn of a new presidential administration, Black America is in the grips of compounding crisis. We've lost more people to COVID than anyone, blah, blah, blah. We've been laid off more and hired less. Our businesses have shuttered. Who burned them down? Who burned some of them down? Okay. While President Biden talks to Congress and the State of the Union, we'll be talking to our communities. And we'll hear from everyday people about what we bought. Here are the names.
Oh, they got some names.
Jamaica Gray, Fresco Stees, Maurice Weeks, co-executive director, Action Center on Race and the Economy.
See, that's another group. And then you got director
Armin Henderson, Richard
Dream Defenders,
Beatrice Beckford, Nana Gyamfi, Mixie Newer. In other words, some journalist out there has some names now.
They can go find.
They can go find out and try to dig to, like, at least get a no comment, not telling you who wrote this. That's just one event. Then we've got the Black National Convention. And then this says August 28th, but this happened.
Yeah, I don't think it happened.
Oh, it didn't happen?
I saw that before and I didn't see anything afterwards. So I'm thinking maybe it didn't happen.
Okay. Because, I'm trying to find any the revolution will be televised. But I was trying to find any other names. But at that event, there are speakers.
There were speakers.
State of Black America. If you're a journalist out there, start making calls. Go to this website. Find out who these people are. Find out what these programs are. Because we know they have these planks and platforms. We know they're telling us in no uncertain terms what they want to do to our economy, to our legal system. They've got laws written and ready to go. And here they're going to talk about, education. There's going to be an interview on education, immigration, safety, and investment. I think some people need to talk to these people. Do y'all think so? You agree with me? Thumbs up. Call your friendly neighborhood journalist.
And the thing that shocked me the most is when I found this, I was all like, whoa. And so I was mentioning to people, I would invite people on my show and interview if they're journalists or if they're writing books on this topic, or if I would go on another show and I would add to a person. I only had one person that said they'd even heard of them. Everyone. And these are, I won't say any names, but these are people you all know. Really prominent people. And they were like, no idea what it is. Let me see. And I sent them the link and they were like, what the? It's like, yeah. Marching orders is what they do. And, divvy out money. Then we can get back to the money, but still.
Well, I also think lawmakers need to be made aware of this because I don't care what party they're in. I mean, if they're in the Democratic, these people are, as you point out in the book, they hate both parties.
Yeah, these aren't
These
Democrats.
are non-Democrats. Okay, they hate both parties. They
They hate
have
the system, so obviously they hate everybody. Yeah,
right, but they are very clear saying they'll only work with the left. They refer
right.
to it as the left,
Right. They're
whatever that
like,
is.
because they've been promising all this stuff, so we need to push them to get what we want. But
Right.
I
So
don't
they
really
want to
trust them.
use them and then throw them away, but they're not unto the two parties.
Right. And so that's when I get into trouble because I post this, things about the left and people attack me. It's like, well, you don't say anything about Republicans. I was like, but I didn't say anything about Democrats either. You brought up politics.
Correct.
Well, everybody knows when you say the left, you mean Democrats, but I don't. I don't even mean liberals. And I write to liberals like, dude, you might disagree on me on policy, whatever. We're beyond policy. You know that these people are crazy. You need to call them out.
Exactly. And that's what I would say is, I don't care if your lawmaker is a Democrat.
Right.
I don't care if it's Sheila Jackson freaking Lee.
Right.
You need to get them, to own, to say,
I don't think they know
you
how far these people are going.
what?
They know more. They know more than the average person, and they're like, okay, we'll deal. We'll take. Yeah, you're a little extreme, but I'll take the part that makes sense and
No,
just
but
kick the rest
they
aside. But they
need to
don't
be
know how far they are.
they need to be called on the carpet about this and say there are laws written, ready to go. Can I have your assurance on camera, Congresswoman, that you would never vote for this? Make them own this stuff because these people are going to be, we know they've got lobby. Look how much money they've got. This is where the money comes in again. Money pays for lobbyists. Lobbyists go to these Congress critters and they do and whatever to say whatever they do to get them to vote certain ways or build coalitions or whatever. And we know they're not ideologues. They don't care. Where's my
Right.
money? So the knowing that this is out there ought to be lighting a fire under people who are responsible journalists, people who are responsible, lobbyists and politicians to demand answers. Okay, they have all the demands. We have some demands too as Americans. Do you or
Right.
do you not observe your oath of office? Because according to you, if you're going to scream in a microphone about insurrection, oh, so scary, our democracy is threatened. What the hell is this if not planned insurrection via legislation and other means? It is the same thing. And they go out of their way to say that they want to completely overthrow the country as it is. And there it is sitting there. Meanwhile, parents go to a school board meeting and complain about child porn and we're domestic terrorists.
Right. Right. And we know the other thing we know is because people may ask, well, how can you prove this is really bad? I'm with you, but how can you prove that they're the same as BLM? One, it doesn't matter, right? Because
Who cares?
it's out there and they're pushing the stuff in your country. So who cares if they know Patrice colors or not? It doesn't matter. But two, the way though subtly is you've heard politicians pushing the Breathe Act. Talking about George Floyd, these acts. What do you think they're going to? In fact, I did not save it in time, and I wish I had, but I will say it because it's fact. When I first found their site, was it two or three? I won't say whether it was three or not, but definitely two members of the squad were on their site as promoting one of the acts they were pushing. But they weren't saying the group is great. They were saying, yes, there was a link where it opens up another page where it says, yes, help us promote, to save this police brutality thing, sign this act. And it was Omar and I forgot who the other one was. Yep, on their side. Gone now, of course. I don't know why the act isn't passed yet. They should still be out there pushing it.
Yeah. I mean, do you believe? I mean, okay. So the next question is I said at the beginning they're true believers because I think they are. I think they actually want this. I don't think they
I think it's a
understand.
mix. I think some of them are. Some of them see a way to get notoriety. Some of them see a way to get money. But there's a good percentage in this group. There's a large percentage, a higher percentage of people who are true believers, right? But even they don't know, know whether. I mean, so if you ask them, they think they really believe it. But most of them are living a lifestyle in America that's better than the average American. So I don't think when the rubber hits the road, if they are really willing to make the whole of the country worse, true socialism, make everybody else better by bringing their quality of life down. I don't believe that,
But
but they're naive.
that's why I think it's so important to find out who they are and name
Yep.
them and call
Yep.
them out by name. And
Mm-hmm.
because the beauty of what you've done in your book and what others have done as far as Nicole Hannah Jones is Nicole Hannah Jones can't be as effective when we know who she is and what she's saying, and that is her. That's, Ida B. Clown Hair is out there and she is saying crazy things. And then you come along all logical and reasonable and you say, well, what about this? And what about that? And, you point it out. She starts to look and sound as, I don't even want to say crazy. It's not crazy, but she's
Extreme.
agenda driven.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. As she is. And I actually think that helps because, well, first of all, transparency is always a good thing. It's always a good thing to know who's saying what and to whom and all that. But it's a lot harder to defend this kind of thing when they're coming at your face. They come into your door and they're knocking on your door and saying, give us a statement. What's going on? And, oh, so do you really want to overthrow the US government? Go on record. Did you write that? We just found out. We traced it around and we found out you contributed. So and so told us. We had a whistleblower. They said that you wrote this. Is that true? Is that true? Suddenly, it becomes harder for them to raise those funds
Right,
from
because
these
they're safe right now.
corporations.
These people are safe.
Exactly. Right now, the secrecy is their power. So what I took away from this whole section of the book is that how brilliant they are in being this quiet, not having spokespeople, not having a leader, not having, all that, being just like
Mhm.
under the radar and yet
Never doing
massive.
media. Right. But why would they? I mean, they're giving them $100 million. They
Right.
can be kingmakers. They can give it to other people and let them speak.
Right.
And
But
they
the
can focus
people
on the
giving the
ideology.
money know who they're giving it to.
Mm-hmm.
Or as far as like that, like a small organization. So the other message would be if you are a corporation or you work for a corporation and you have the ear of the people who do the charitable giving and they're giving to, equity organizations or anti-racism organizations, or go look at what some of the names of these organizations are and check your charitable giving, or go to your company and say, are you guys, I work for this company. I want to know where the money's going. Each individual can, start to make some noise and at least make sure that the people doing the doling out of the money become aware that, some of that money might be finding its way to these people. Are you okay with that? Or do
Right.
you want to maybe rein it in and make sure you know exactly where the money is going that you are giving from for your charitable giving? And because I think right now they're just like, what? Black stuff? Okay, money here. But is it black? Okay, here. Oh, it's black things here. They're not asking questions. It's black. Must be good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Must be helpful.
You want to spend the last 5 minutes asking any questions or reading any comments? I was so focused on you, I didn't even see all these comments in there. I'm kind of scrolling through now.
Look at Deb. She's going crazy. All right, let's see. Let's go back. Let's see. Yeah, people are agreeing. They hate the um
I see somebody talking about a fiscal sponsor. If you read the book, Sour Kiwi, they've changed them several times. I mentioned that one of them was at a terrorist on their board, so they've changed them. But I know it's been Thousand Currents. It's been the Alliance for Global Justice. It's been Act Blue and somebody else. The Tides Foundation. Last
right.
time I checked, it was Tides. I don't know who it is. And Tides is well known, been around since the 70s and all that stuff. So, most of the stuff is legally above board, which is another reason why you're going to have a hard time,
Right.
getting them in trouble for that. But it's interesting that you say now it's the Common Council Foundation. Who knows who they are?
Right. I'm trying to get the link for your book so I can give that to people so they can go buy it right now. Somebody said, here, check this out. 2001 terrified them. United people can't be controlled, so they want us all divided and hateful. What do you think about that statement?
What did it say? 2001 terrified them.
Like we were united because of the
Right.
World Trade
Oh,
Center
right,
attack.
right. Because we were united afterwards, right?
Yep.
I don't know. Some of these people, especially the ones you're calling true believers, have been angry. I mean, they were definitely bothered by that. They did not like any positivity towards America, but they are just hell bent on creating a different nation. They don't like the one that we're in, and they want it to be different.
Right. Exactly. What else? Well, I want to ask you is like, okay, I just rattled off rapid fire things that people might be able to do as far as pushing back on this kind of nonsense. But do you have any thoughts or, things that you want
You
for?
know, light as a disinfectant. I think people need to know this stuff cold. So when somebody tries to come to them and they say, well, I disagree with what's going on, and they try to say right wing, Trump, MAGA, white nationalists, just say, do you think police should be abolished? Well, they don't really say that. Here are their words. Right? Do
Exactly.
you think kids should be learning this in school? Well, that's not what they're teaching. It's Black history. This is what they're teaching.
Exactly. Now, Michael's asking about C. Okay, this is what Charles is involved in. This is
Right.
tell me again. It's like seeking
Seeking educational
education.
excellence.
Yes.
Yes.
Does it have any involvement with the growing homeschooling movement?
Yeah, the whole fixing education has a lot of tentacles, so everybody's kind of working together. But generally, I think it's best when you do what you do well and focus on that. And we're focused on creating curriculum alternatives, mostly in the ways of history and civics in those areas. So when people say, so 1619 is bad, what do you propose we teach? We have something there. School boards, because as much as I'm a fan of school choice and homeschooling, and this crazy madness is making it go up, weird things like this, the pandemic will change things. But in general, you were going to get incremental increase in homeschooling. We'll see what happens when they try to stick 5-year-olds. And then you were going to get people's like, I don't like what's going on there, and I can, I want school choice, and I'm going to go to another school. But to be honest, 70% of the kids, maybe more, but at least 70%, we're going to be stuck in the public schools anyway. So I feel we still need to try to fix those schools as best we can. So part of that is, changing the makeup of the people who make the policy. So we work on school boards, and then, we are trying to, like I say, create an organization that can kind of unify with these other groups and push in the same direction and kind of amplify what they're already doing.
Right. What would stop people who want to, save the country or protect liberty from people who don't like it? What stops us from making one of these? I mean, what stops us from making the movement for all lives, or the movement for America, or what there's the
Um,
model.
um, Nothing technically, but I guess the problem would be, can you get enough like-minded people to do it and not want to do their own thing? Because it's going to take a lot of resources and money, because you're going to have somebody who's two or three people whose sole job is to deflect, because you're going to be attacked, you know, getting lumped into some political thing or whatever. You're going to have people who are going to have to, help
Do you
my
think
organization with curriculum. You got to have people, so there's stuff on there, right? You got pushing legislation. You got people to do all that kind of stuff. So it can be done, but you need resources.
do you
Tell
think
them to stop writing checks for those politicians who are just talking, and write us some checks.
Right, that's true, but do you think that if this when your book comes out and more people start hearing about movement for Black lives and so forth, because I don't have illusions that millions of people are going to see this video, but I'm hoping they'll buy your book and
And
then
they're
spread
not buying the book anyway, but okay, either. But okay, let's
but
assume they do. I mean, yeah, but then
as a
what?
do you think it's as easy to defend that as it's been to defend Black Lives Matter? Because Black Lives Matter, I'm actually surprised how much defense they get, because they're up front with like BLM in the classroom is, we want to tear apart the family and all these things, and they're still putting it in the classroom. Just today, I got something from New Jersey, from my whistleblower in New Jersey, showing me how the list of resources for anti-racism stuff has BLM in the classroom on it to this day for kids as young as kindergarten. And we know they're teaching all kinds of craziness. Do you think this, though, that is so much more in your face, is as easy to defend as that?
What, the movement part?
Well, the
No, that's
fact that like if somebody's decided to go up against it
oh,
and
yeah. But when you talk about defense, are you talking about, is it easy for the movement for Black Lives to defend what they have on their site, or for the alternative site to defend what they're saying?
well, it's a combination of both. So like if an alternative site was up, let's say Fair decided to pivot and become the anti that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Instead
Yep.
of, and just become the anti that with
Right.
all kinds of like shadowy stuff underneath and doing the same exact thing, but the opposite of that. And you said, people be deflecting and, oh, you're racist, whatever. Okay. If you're literally anti that, that means they're simultaneously saying this is okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that is going to be a tenable position?
Well, I don't know, because if they really did it in the same manner, then they would be cloak and dagger about it. So people wouldn't really attack them, because the movement for Black Lives is not getting attacked because no one knows who it is. So they would just have to be power players, raise the money, come up with the great ideas, like a super powered think tank. And then they take those ideas and they disseminate them to people, but it have to be disparate people. You can't just give it to conservative politicians, because if you just attack a politicians, you win, right? It's all
Right.
a right-wing thing there. So you got to find centrists. You got to find people in the arts. You got to go to Joe Rogan. You got to go to comedians. You got to go to people in the teachers who are willing to speak out. You have to go to just regular parents. You have a young black mother on there saying, look, this is what happened in my skin. And well, what do you think they should do? And then run off our talking points about what they should do. So they're
Have you
coming out of other
contacted Joe
people's mouth.
Rogan? Have you contacted Joe Rogan?
I have not. But I suggested to some people with more juice than me that they should. I said, stop talking to conservatives. These are the people you need to talk to.
For sure.
There's a whole list of them. You
Yeah.
know, left-leaning people who have respect and large followings, but they beat up on Trump, but they also beat up on the left, and you just got to convince them to stop talking about Trump. This is not a political thing. You agree with this, say this stuff.
Right. Exactly. All right. So that's everybody's marching orders. Find those people and disseminate this information and get Charles on with Joe Rogan some kind of way, because people need to know about this. Like you said, sunlight is the best disinfectant. Yeah. I'm just trying to reach out to my little 8,000 whatever audience, and then maybe y'all can reach out to all the people you know and just kind of like spread it out. Last question. Michael asks, the materials that you mentioned that you're trying to create, the alter, you've got 1776 United Sport, that's available to all?
Yeah, because we're not selling this stuff. We want teachers to say, I want an alternative. I want to download this curriculum and then use it.
Good. Well, I'm going to be doing that. So,
right. So we want to do that. And then, from a funding standpoint, we just get people to donate so we can, fund doing it, but we don't charge people to use it. No.
Okay. Well, that's fantastic. All right. Well, this was an eye opener. I hope that for those who came and watched and those watching on the replay, it was as advertised a shock, because it was to me. When I read the book, I was like, blah, 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 what? Charles hinted at it last week, but the more I read through this and the details and the quotes, it really did amaze me that nobody in the last, they've been working on this for 3 years. They've been working on that. And then they've been working since 2014 in general. And then they say they've been working for 40 years overall. And we didn't know about it.
Nope. Nobody I mentioned it to. And every time I give somebody a book, I just say, I just can't wait till you get to that part. And then then it's like, oh my God, it's like, oh, you reached that part.
Right. Yep. And I will tell you guys too, that the book is so great because it's really detailed and has lots of sources, but it's so readable. Like you just like read. Like, boom. It just so well presented as far as, you can't, like you said, you can't argue with Charles. Right. Like he's right. Like the way
you lay everybody, out if nothing else, take that clip and play it back. He's right.
He is. And if you take the arguments as he frames them, because the way he frames, we mentioned this in the last video. If you weren't here last week, go back and watch that last video where he talks about how he frames his arguments. That is really important to understand. It will help you understand why this book is different from all the other books on these topics, because I think you're going to come away with more of a toolkit. So it's not just information. You're not just going to learn. I think you're going to actually have some tools. If you adopt this strategy for talking to people about these issues, you're going to be more persuasive than you otherwise would be. That is reason enough, in my opinion, aside from all the wealth of information, to buy the book. Is a how-to to have really effective arguments with people about these topics, in my opinion.
And that's important. I think that you talked about, going on Rogan and all that other stuff, which will move the needle a bit. It'd be helpful to me. But if you really want to help the whole process, it's you all, the people watching this and the people sharing it, talking to other people. Because you might be like, I got 3 followers on Twitter and nobody knows who I am. Yes, but you have 6 coworkers and 10 people in your family that you can talk to. So right. If we did that 1 million times over, that is, 5 times the size of Rogan's show.
Exactly.
Or anybody else out there. So that's the real, and that's real America. It's people talking to people. And, you have your friends and family that just think they're so woke. But I don't understand, because their job and the things they do are so logical. I just think they probably don't know what's happening. If you explain to them, like, well, I don't agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we got to get them the information.
Yep. And hey, Christmas is coming.
There you go.
Christmas present under the tree. Yep. Get them to read it. It's really just, or if you got to drive somewhere because you're not flying, because you know why, over the holidays, get the audiobook and play it in the car to your lovely captive audience.
Right. Force them to listen to, exactly. I don't know. I haven't seen the final product, but X number of hours of my voice, because I read it.
No, I actually bought the audiobook for myself because I want you reading it. even though I've already read it, I want it to be read for my husband. I'm like, okay, you need to read this book, but I got the audiobooks and play it in the car, so it's like we can hear the voice.
Yeah, so you can
So
hear it as it was intended. So I put the inflections. So there were times I went back. It's like, no, it's like what? It sounded fine, but that's not what I didn't mean it. I meant it. Let me do it again. I meant to say this. It's like, oh, so you got to read it the way
yes.
I wrote it, and I think I did a good job of that. I
And
guess
no
I never.
offense to Clifton Duncan, I think he did a lovely job with that little
Oh, he's
section.
gonna make people not buy the audiobook because they're gonna be like, well, you sound crappy. I want his
No, no,
voice.
no, 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 no. He is like, I'd listen to him read the phone book, but your humor and your inflections, like you said, the way I actually hear you, even when I'm reading it, I'm like hearing you say the stuff. So it's your style, guys. Just
Thank you.
get the book. I put the link in the chat feed. Here I'll put it again. I think I've still got it as my little pasty deal here. Go get the book. And Charles, I cannot thank you enough for giving me this exclusive on this topic.
Yeah, you asked. No one else asked.
See how that
So you be
goes?
the first. So when you
See
all
how that
see me
goes?
on TV talking about the movement of Black Lives, like, oh, I heard that. I watched the damn spot.
Yeah, right. I heard him when he was on that little tiny podunk channel. All right. Well, thank you again. Thanks for everybody for
All
listening.
voices matter.
Yes. Share, well, not all, maybe, but yours does. So thank you all for coming, and please share this out for everyone to see on the replay. All right. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.